If you're asking yourself, which jobs will survive AI and which jobs will disappear, you're asking the wrong kind of question. If you have asked me months ago, which jobs will be disappeared by AI, I would have probably said, you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by someone using AI. But actually, I don't believe that anymore. After reading tons of books, listening to experts' podcasts, and reading research papers, I actually came into a conclusion that made me depressed for a while. We're kind of screwed. Everything that I thought makes us irreplaceable and human can be actually done by AI, or will be soon. For example, emotional intelligence, or creativity, or actual connection can be replaced by an AI. I know it sounds really extreme and controversial, but let me explain myself in this video, okay? So in the first half, we're going to talk about the immediate impact of AI and which jobs will be affected the most in the next 5 years. Some might disappear and some might just shrink in size. And in the next half of the video, I want to discuss about the long-term impact that no one really talks about and why we are all kind of screwed, because we're witnessing the biggest economic shift in the history. And the bad news is that we are completely unprepared for it. Everyone knows that taxi drivers, bank tellers, and data entry kind of jobs are in danger, right? But let's not talk about those. Let's talk about the ones that no one expects, or no one expects the way that they will be replaced. So the first one is actually lawyers. You might be thinking like, but law requires actually human judgment. But the thing is that if you can teach all the laws that are existing to an AI can actually make decisions without a bias and can do it better than humans. When we actually think about lawyers, what lawyers do, and how courts work, it's all about case scenarios and how the different laws have been applied in the history and how this case should be solved, right? So it's almost like a pattern recognition, and that's something an AI can do way better than humans, because it can remember all the cases that happened in the past and how to decide for this one without a bias. And actually there are some experiments where they train an AI for a few hours. It can actually make pretty good judgments, and we're talking about just an hour. Imagine when the AI gets way better and they actually train it for different states of law or for different countries. It can actually replace the majority of the lawyers. The scary part is that we might not even need judges eventually, because if AI can analyze every relevant case in history and exceptions when it comes to decision making and apply the law consistently without a bias, what is exactly humans are adding? Sure, maybe the top % of lawyers can survive for maybe taking responsibility, etc., and for exceptional cases that never happened in the history before. But for an average lawyer, it could be quite replaceable. And even if the job title of lawyer doesn't, let's say, like disappear from world, the thing is that the number of lawyers required because of AI is going to be way lower. Because when it comes to, let's say, like document reviewing or contract signing or legal research, that could be done by a singular AI rather than 5 junior lawyers. So your job title might not disappear, but your job specifically can disappear. The second category is actually software with AI. And you might be thinking like, oh, but you still have to like build with it. Sure, but the number of required software engineers are gonna shrink. Either of them are gonna happen, in my opinion. And the same actually goes to creators, like content creators or any kind of traditional media creatives as well. Like, I'm not an exception in this thing. Because when you think about creativity, you know, a lot of people were actually saying that AI is going to replace like human labor, like maybe manual labor, and it's gonna replace creativity the last. But I never agreed with that. The reason behind that is actually when you think about creativity, it's all about combining existing ideas in an unpredictable way. When you think about an iPhone, it didn't came out of nowhere. Creativity is always combining already existing elements in human history and combining in them in a way that people never thought before. That is creativity. And the further away the 2 points that you're combining are away from, the more creative you're going to be perceived by humans. So when we think about it, true creativity, so something coming out of nowhere, never exists. Maybe you're just unconscious about it. This is also quite highlighted in the book Still Like an Artist, which is my favorite book. So when you think about that, when you think what actually creativity is, AI is really good at analyzing what humans like, and it will get better at connecting the dots that humans value that actually is creative per se. And when you think about it, like storytelling or Hollywood movies even have a formula for the best emotional investment from the audience. So AI can actually apply that into different things and come up with new ideas. And you might be thinking like, but AI is always going to be based on trained at existing things and it cannot be creative as humans. Okay, if that's the case, let's say it's true, which I don't really agree with, sure, but 90% of the people are not that creative as well. So it's going to reduce the people who are mediocre at creativity, and only the true exceptional people who change the industry are gonna remain, which is also kind of a danger to me as well, which is a scary part. You know, like a mediocre copywriter or a YouTuber that just copies other people's ideas, or a TV host that actually adds nothing other than just bringing guests. These kind of people can be all replaced by AI, including myself. If you're watching this video and worried about how AI will impact your career and you're trying to figure out which skills to develop next, I suggest you take a look at the side hustle database I've been exploring. We just talked about how every job is being transformed by AI at a lightning speed, right? This side hustle database gives you a real-time snapshot of where actual market demand is right now, not where expert thinks it might be in 5 years. These side hustles are basically early indicators of future full-time careers. Today's like AI prompt consultant side gig could be tomorrow's essential corporate role. We don't know. The database has 100 unique side hustle ideas, and what I love about is that each of them basically breaks down the exact skills you need, many of which align with AI-resistant capabilities, and how much initial investment is required. Many of them start at $0 to $500. Plus, when you grab the database, you also get the Hustle's daily newsletter, which delivers the latest in tech, startups, and business trends. My favorite section is actually the Hustle newsletter that comes with it, because it keeps you updated on how the industry is evolving and new opportunities are arising. It's completely free, and in a world where AI capabilities advance weekly, having that constant pulse on the market is invaluable in my opinion. This resource was made by HubSpot Media, who is sponsoring this portion of the video. Thank you so much. If you're interested, check the link in the description below. And the another one is actually managers/CEOs. It might sound actually crazy, but CEOs are also quite replaceable, because when you think about it, CEOs do two things. One is to set the vision for the company, and two, manage operations and decision making. AI can't inspire people to set visions and also motivate them, at least for now, but management is essentially just resource allocation and decision making. AI is already better than humans at data processing and optimization. So a company with a visionary CEO plus an AI could replace an entire middle management layer workers. The only thing that CEO does is decision making and operations management, and there is no vision or motivation or innovation involved, then that CEO is also quite replaceable, because those are the things that AI can do. For example, you might be thinking like, this sounds so dystopian, but when you actually look at Toyota, which is a very big Japanese car company, if you haven't heard of it, I'm just kidding. For example, Toyota actually uses this principle. So for Toyota, actually they have a rule of organizing yourself on your own, and you don't have actually a middle management manager. So because the teams themselves organize themselves and they don't have a management, the thing that Toyota CEO does is actually bringing vision to the team and motivating them and pushing them forward and coming up with innovations and all these kind of things. So they don't actually have that many management layer, because people are managing themselves already. So when you think about that, it's already in place even without AI. So why not it happen with an AI? It can replace the management layer as well as some CEOs if they're not bringing any vision or innovation to the company and are just managing the company. The one that actually kind of concerns me is the doctors. Sure, doctors are not gonna completely disappear, but it's gonna affect medicine quite a lot. When you think about it, the amount of time it's being spent on diagnosis, like to figure out what's wrong with the patient essentially, can be actually replaced by an AI. And when you look online, there's so many posts saying that find my condition that doctors couldn't find it for years. If you would actually train AI for medical purposes, like maybe different departments had different AI and they trained them for different cases and what to do about them, then it can actually handle the diagnosis part way better than humans can ever do, because it really is good at pattern analysis. And we could also teach it millions of drug interactions as well as symptom combinations, because we're doing the diagnosis as humans ourselves, right? And sometimes you might get misdiagnosed, which is a common thing that happens in medicine actually, because sometimes the symptoms overlap, but AI can be way better than analyzing those overlaps and come with a correct diagnosis, and maybe even find new kinds of diseases, maybe, because it's really good at looking at the data. When we think about it, it actually means that doctors maybe will have more time to spend on other things. Maybe it's the patient management, maybe it's the surgery, maybe it's the actual treatment, or maybe it's the research, whoever knows, would happen in an ideal world. So the diagnosis is done by the AI and the other parts are done by the doctor. However, in a capitalist world, it won't work that way because there's already a shortage of doctors and number of patients, especially in developed countries, right? Because of the older population, or maybe it's not because of the older population, who knows? So if we actually can minimize the time spent for the diagnosis, in a capitalist world, what would happen is that doctors will serve more patients rather than spending more time with each of them because it brings more profits. So either that will happen, or they will reduce the amount of doctors hired so that the profits of the hospital can become higher. That is the issue with the capitalism when it comes to it. So that's the thing that concerns me actually. Even the title of doctor survives. So actually, there are way more jobs that are going to be affected and that are going to be disappear, but we can't discuss all about them in this video. So you might be thinking like, you're making these things up. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So let me explain my decision framework to figure out which jobs will be affected hugely or disappear because of AI, right? I actually came to this decision framework from a Japanese book that I've recently read, which is about the jobs that will survive AI, the jobs that won't, and how it affect the future job market. Essentially what we were talking about. It is written by a very famous Japanese, like an entrepreneur, and he's talking with another entrepreneur that is also well known in Japan. It's almost like a conversation. The book is quite nice, but it's only in Japanese. I'll link in the description below if you're interested. But anyway, what they're saying, and what I quite agree, is that there are 3 questions that answer this. Whether your job will be replaced by an AI or it will be affected hugely. So the first question is the cost equation. And you have to ask yourself, is AI cheaper? So if developing a system or a mechanism, whether that's a software or hardware, whatever that is, to replace you is cheaper than hiring you, the likelihood of you being replaced is quite high. Because when you think about it, human labor work, like the ones that does not necessarily require a lot of knowledge, for example, like packing stuff and then bringing them to customers and logistics, etc., still exist, or like taxi drivers still exist. Because like when you think about it, it just costs more. It's the technical side, law side, different various types of concerns are arising, and all of them cost money to solve. It's not that self-driving taxis are impossible to create or hard to create. It's more that it costs money to solve that issue, and right now human taxi drivers aren't costing that much. So the development cost is higher right now than the replacement cost, and that's why it's not immediately happening. But when we think in terms of long term, it is going to be cheaper, and that's the reason why people are trying to replace it. So that's the first thing. The cost. The higher the cost it is to replace whatever job you do, the more it's going to get delayed. But with the improvement skill of an AI, which is getting faster and faster year by year, it might not be that different. And the second thing that we need to take into consideration is supply and demand. If there is a less demand than a supply for the job, then it's gonna get cut first. If there are only like 100 jobs available, but there are 2,000 people fighting for that job, obviously there's going to be competition is going to be higher, and there are going to be also people fired or replaced because of an AI coming to that competition as well. So that's the second thing. The third thing is what AI excels at. We have to think about what AI is good at and what AI is currently not good at. For example, AI is really good at pattern recognition, data processing and optimization, as well as writing and, going through a document and composing something if you give enough context and rules. When we combine these 3 elements, then we can always see a pattern for the jobs that could be replaced by an AI or will be replaced by an AI pretty soon. You might be thinking, It's fine that some jobs will disappear or shrink in size because AI will create new jobs. Sure, I think it's true, but even if AI created new opportunities, the issue is that AI learns and adapts way faster than humans can ever do. So let's say even if it created new jobs that never existed before, then AI can adapt, learn, and then they could be also replaced by AI, or the number of people required to do that job could be reduced. So it creates a never-ending loop. We're playing an endless game of musical chairs, except the music gets faster each time and the number of chairs are disappearing. It's literally the same thing. By the time we retrain for the AI-proof job, with the accelerating speed of AI might have already learned it. Then you might be thinking, okay, then we can automate parts of the jobs with an AI, and the humans will handle the experience part of it, the emotional connection part of it, because that's what humans are good at. But it's actually kind of wrong. That shocked me. Gen Z already trusts ChatGPT more than any salesman out there. There are people trauma dumping everything about their life to ChatGPT and actually forming connection with ChatGPT.
People talk about the most personal shit in their lives to ChatGPT. Young people especially, like, use it as a therapist, a life coach, having these relationship problems. What should I do?
There are even people who are, we call them delusional right now, but maybe the norm in the future, that date chatbots. And also, we think that human connection and emotional connection happens between two humans, but when you think about, for example, Lion King, a lot of people cry at that movie, even though those lions actually don't speak. They're like literally CGI characters. Or when you think about it, like anime characters, a lot of people fall in love with anime characters and really like bond emotional connections, right? Or like novels. We like the characters, or we imagine characters that don't exist, and we are quite emotionally invested in them, even though those are not human. So when we think about it, actually human connection does not only happen between two humans, it can also happen between an AI and human. Some people say that then, okay, humans will actually create experience economy, right? Everything will be based more on experiences, and then we can create new businesses around it. For example, bookstores are getting replaced by Amazon Kindle. A lot of people online say that, then okay, bookstores should focus on creating more experience as a place rather than just selling books. So maybe there are going to be book communities, events, and maybe there will be a cafe inside of a bookstore so that it can compete with Kindle. But the issue with the experience economy is that if majority of people's jobs are replaced by AI, who is going to be able to pay for the experience service? Because these people are going to struggle with paying their basic needs because they're jobless, yet alone they will pay for an experience-based service. A lot of people like to compare this AI revolution to industrial revolution, right? A lot of people lost their jobs, new jobs emerged. But the thing is that even in the industrial revolution, machines needed humans because machines couldn't learn. But with the accelerating growth of AI, if AI can train itself and basically reach to super intelligence, then what jobs can humans create that AI can't do? And the biggest issue that we never talk about, and I also never thought about, is that if AI replaces, let's say, 30, 40, 50, or even more percentage of the workers, those workers are not going to have any income. And then no income means no purchasing power. And no purchasing power means who is buying anything? Companies using AI will have no customers because they fired them using customers. And then customers are not going to have money because they don't have jobs. When that happens, economy collapses. You might be thinking, like, okay, but then those companies will serve the richest people. But there aren't that many rich people actually when you think about it. Even like a luxury company like LVMH, actually they make their majority of their money from middle class. When you erase the middle class, majority of the companies that are active today will not be able to survive because that's their majority chunk of their customers. When it comes to the paradox, a lot of people like to suggest the idea of an UBI, universal basic income. So everyone gets almost like a salary from the government so that you can cover your basic needs. But the issue with this universal basic income is that who is going to pay it? So one solution could be maybe the AI companies will pay a certain amount of tax per user, or maybe per amount of the employees that are being replaced by, so that they're paying a certain amount of tax so that it can supply the UBI, etc, etc. Let's say we figured out who will pay the UBI, how much, and how they will pay it. Let's focus on the aftermath of it. The issue with the UBI is that it can easily become a political weaponization. Because think about it. Let's say there's a ruling party A and they're controlling the universal basic income. So they could say like, if you vote to party B, who is our rival, we're going to reduce your UBI. So even if there will be different laws and regulations to control that, this political weaponization will likely happen. And wouldn't it open a road to dictatorship? Because also, let's say, even if we handled that part, but if UBI is created by companies who are using AI and they're paying taxes, wouldn't it give the godlike power to those who are controlling AI as well as the UBI? Another issue other than the power dynamics with UBI is that if everyone has the same income, or let's say majority of the people have the same income, the UBI, wouldn't landlords or other sorts of services or anything that you can imagine adjust their prices according to the demand? That's basically like capitalism, right? If there's more demand, then you increase the prices because people are asking for it. So landlords could probably price the rent as more and more because they know that you have, let's say, this $2,000 coming from the government. And then if the government, for example, determines the prices for things, like let's say this meat is going to be this priced at this thing at this weight, and the rent is going to be around this based on these rules, doesn't it mean that it's going to kill the free market? Because if all the prices are controlled by the government, it's not capitalism anymore. And it means that it's almost like communism, right? And also when it comes to prices, even if you have, let's say, like different factors affecting the prices, maybe based on the season, maybe based on availability, etc., the issue is that inflation is likely to happen on UBI. And if the inflation of living cost is not the same as the inflation to the UBI, it's basically the same. It's just going to be the baseline. If the speed of the inflation is going to be faster or higher than the UBI's inflation, then UBI is not going to improve living. It just resets the floor. That's it. So when we think about it, neither pure capitalism or communism really gives solutions. Or even if we think about socialism, it also creates new problems. So socialism basically centers on worker ownership of the means of production. But when AI replaces most workers, who owns the means of production really? And the concept of workers controlling their workspace collapses when workspaces have minimal workers because they're replaced by AI. And socialist systems emphasize democratic control of economic decisions. But when AI makes the most production decisions, what meaningful choices can humans vote on? And a core socialist tool is also workers organizing to negotiate with owners, right? But with minimal human labor needed, bargaining power actually disappears, which challenges the socialism in an AI economy. And when it comes to communism assumes abundance. Till maybe a certain point, abundance could be created by an AI. But when you think about it, not everything is abundant. For example, land or human attention. Those things are not abundant. And even if the government controls the UBI and the landlord prices, who is going to live in the most desirable places versus maybe in the suburban areas that is not that desirable? And also, when we apply communism, central authority controlling AI becomes the ultimate power. And for that structure to work, the government has to be very trustworthy, which is not the case in most highly developed countries. And the issue is that humans want differentiation, right? Other than basic needs, we need expression of self, ability to choose things and differentiate ourselves from others. So how is that going to work? And in capitalism, we see that if workers are replaced by an AI, who's going to buy the products? So when we think about all the potential issues with the current major economical systems, it does not work with an AI. So actually, in my opinion, the important question we should be asking is not which jobs will survive in an AI era. It's more about whether the system will survive. Because as far as I know, obviously I'm not an economist or anything, but every economic system valued human labor. But when it doesn't, we will need something entirely new. Can it be that AI is forcing humans to invent something post-capitalism? And what if the answer is that there is no answer? Because in an VUCA age, which is basically high volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity era, future is never an extension of the past. So no one actually knows what will happen in the future. So what if we're heading towards an economic system so different that we can't even conceive them yet? So in my opinion, actually no one knows what's going to happen next because of the accelerating pace of the changes that is happening in the world. So in my opinion, asking the question of which jobs will disappear, which jobs will emerge is actually a pointless question to ask. And what will happen in the next 5 years is also a pointless question to ask because no one actually knows what will happen. I read a bunch of books about the experts' predictions from years ago about AI, right? Even like 2 years ago. And most of the things that they said were completely wrong. So even experts are failing at trying to predict the future because it's so different than we have ever experienced before. Then is there any meaning even questioning it as an average person? Obviously, you can think about it here and there, but the things that we think are based on the things that happened so far. If there's something that we cannot understand yet or can conceive yet, then our current ways of thinking or our current systems of thinking is not going to give the answer that is correct in the future. So in my opinion, it's not going to be even like AI is going to replace some works and create new opportunities, but it's going to be completely something different that we cannot even conceive yet. Maybe it's going to be post-capitalism, maybe it's going to be a new economic era, who knows? Or maybe it's something that we have not even invented before. It's almost like asking which telegraph operator will survive in the internet era. It will not. That is the answer. The whole market is going to shift. The only honest answer, in my opinion, is that no one has the answers. And we're living through the biggest economic transformation that ever happened before. We are completely blind to wherever it's heading. And I think, in my opinion, it's quite terrifying, but also exciting because we get to witness it, especially if you are in your 20s and 30s. We're going to probably experience the effects of it at its core. Maybe the humanity will collapse. Who knows? That is basically my answer after researching about it for a month and reading whatever I could ever find. I know it's maybe not the most optimistic answer that you can ever look for, and I was way optimistic at the beginning of the research of this video, but essentially what we can do is face whatever is going on in the right now and adapt to it, because other than that we don't really have any other choices. Take it with a grain of salt, but my advice would be don't panic, but also don't ignore it. We have to just observe and adapt and do whatever we can do best in that given moment.